Where would you draw the line for someone being natural and someone being not? Where would the limit be for you to say, okay, that person is no longer natural anymore? Would it have to be a certain supplement? Would it have to be something that's injected? A drug perhaps, prescription or not? Or would it have to be banned by a certain federation for you to say, yes, if you take that, you are no longer natural? Well, Greg O'Gallagher, of all people, aka Kino Body, I'm sure you know who he is starting to mix up or stir up social media at the moment by what he defines as natural, or as he would say, GLP natty, because what he's decided to do recently is take Tirzepatide, a GLP-1, to minimize his hunger, minimize his cravings, to get and to stay lean. He's been a very prominent natural in the industry for a while, and people aren't happy that he's made this decision. And in this video, I actually want to go over that situation and actually look at the science behind GLP-1s and actually answer, are GLP-1s natural or not? It's quite an interesting topic, to be fair, and I'd like to hear your opinion on it once you've watched this video. But first, thank you. Thank you for all the support that you give to the channel. It genuinely does mean so much. And if you would consider subscribing as a new viewer, it would mean the world.
Subscribe to Cal.
Now, as stated previously, Greg O'Gallagher, or Kino Body on Instagram, is a very famous fitness influencer who has been around for frigging years at this point. He is pioneering, literally in his frigging bio, he says, pioneering the movie star body. He's very much against conventional fitness influencing, if you will. He's not necessarily in the pipeline of, oh, go compete in bodybuilding once you get a good physique. And in fact, he's actually vocal against bodybuilding, if you will. Not building a bodybuilder physique, but building the, again, movie star physique. Which I think draws a big appeal to a mainstream audience, because not everyone wants to look at bloody Nick Walker all the time. Or as we covered recently, Mike Tren and his freaking ogre maxing tendency. Ogre maxing, bro. Greg has a much more appealing physique to the average person. But recently he's hopped on the Tirzepatide in his own terms, aka Tirzepatide, to stay lean.
And we are shredded. GLP natty, a little Tirzepatide, mojo, gains, octane. This is nuts, crazy.
We can see in a video that he posted on his YouTube recently that he put the caption GLP natty, and in the whole video he's talking about how he is GLP natty, how he's shredded now, and he's in amazing shape. And yes, you can see the guy is in amazing shape, but it's funny that the comments are not in agreement with what he's talking about, laughing at him at calling it GLP natty, saying the bro's having a nervous breakdown over his natural status, saying that no one loves Greg more than Greg.
This is nuts, crazy.
People saying that he's mentally ill, or even saying that he's gaslighting people for more money. People aren't freaking happy about this at all. You can literally look at other videos as well where he talks about why he's microdosing Tirzepatide and other stuff like that, whilst also, by the way, putting his clinic in the freaking comments, which I think is notable to point out when they talk about how great these things are, because of course it's going to influence their decision if they have a clinic in themselves. And of course people again are not happy in the comments of frigging any of these videos, bro. He's literally there dancing to and then I rearrange just a day or two. Yeah, people aren't happy about this, bro. So much so, mate, that he made an apology video. Literally.
All right, guys, I got to do this video. You know, there's been a lot of talk on the town about me using the Tirzepatide. That, hey, you know, I let you guys down. I'm cheating. I'm using this GLP to lower my appetite. This is bull. How dare I? And I just want to apologize for absolutely nothing because I love it. I enjoy a little Tirzepatide to just support satiety, to make it so much more enjoyable to hit my calories, to help more and more clients break through the wall, transform, boost metabolic health. I love the Tirzepatide. The Tirzepatide is great. If you have no problem hitting your calories, you don't need it. Congratulations.
And he pulls out a bloody Conor McGregor, mate. I want to apologize to absolutely no one.
I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody.
I enjoy a little Tirzepatide.
Yes, he just wasn't having it at all. Now, he actually refers to Tirzepatide as being a tool. a tool which will help him to lose weight as well as his clients to lose weight, as well as to be able to maintain that body that they have, to keep the weight off. Which is interesting because I'm sure people would probably draw comparisons to maybe like TRT or something, for instance, right? Someone would take TRT as a tool to naturally bring up their testosterone levels to maintain bodily function. However, the interesting distinction there is that taking TRT, exogenous testosterone, to maintain healthy levels of testosterone will be different than a natural endogenous production of testosterone, especially in stuff like testosterone circadian rhythm. Naturally, there will be peaks and troughs, whereas if you do TRT, depending on your injection frequency, it will be elevated consistently. And so that brings in the question when looking at something like a GLP-1 agonist like Tirzepatide, as Greg is taking, are you natural if you take it? Because your body naturally secretes GLP-1 from your intestines in a response to food to manage, I can't freaking say this word, to manage how satiated you are, how full you are, if you will. It's an incretin hormone, which means it will increase insulin, help manage blood sugar. It will also help manage your hunger and also your gastric emptying, which helps with, I can never say this word, helps with how satiated you are and how full you are for longer, which is the main mechanism it uses to help people to lose weight and not overeat. And when you inject a GLP-1 agonist, whether it be something like Ozempic, Tirzepatide, and of course Reta, cagrilintide, whichever one you want to bloody pick, it will sort of in a way mimic the GLP that's in your system already. However, natural GLP-1 is different than injecting an exogenous form of a GLP-1 agonist. One of the main ones being in half-life. Now, the half-life of GLP-1 in your system is 2 minutes. 2 minutes. How long do you think the half-life is for Tirzepatide that Greg is taking? Mate, 5 days. That is a frigging huge difference. Of course, you have to keep in mind as well, when you're injecting an exogenous form of this stuff, there's going to be super physiological levels of GLP-1. So that means your appetite is going to be suppressed drastically and for a longer period of time because of that longer half-life. Meaning it will have a weight loss effect effectively like nothing else. Yes, you can increase GLP-1 through perhaps like certain foods or teas I've heard some people talk about, right? But that isn't going to be nearly enough of an effect as injecting a GLP-1 agonist. I would kind of liken it to a testosterone example, although they're very different hormones. I'm not saying they're similar in their mechanisms. What I'm trying to say is there are ways, of course, you can naturally boost your testosterone with things like doing regular training, regular exercise, getting proper sleep, getting a good diet that's conducive with, great hormone production. However, it would be, okay, maybe people talk about taking certain natural testosterone boosting supplements or whatever like that, right?
You're doing a 3-month May Mojo deal, insane Mojo deal. We can get 3 bottles of Mojo, okay, for $99, just $99, 3 bottles.
But there will be nothing like injecting exogenous testosterone, similar to how GLP-1s work. Yes, there are ways you can naturally boost it, but it's nothing like injecting it. So does that mean you're natural?
GLP naughty.
No, I would say it doesn't. Now, yes, there were people like Gregor Gallagher who have said that it doesn't give a performance-enhancing effect, i.e. being stronger or having more endurance or something like that. But of course, it's going to drastically increase your ability to lose weight and keep that weight off. Not necessarily a performance-enhancing effect, but it will have unnatural levels of weight loss, something that you can never achieve without having that drug. I would class that personally as not natural. Of course, then you have to look at the context behind these certain things. People will say stuff like, oh, well, life isn't a drug-tested sport, and, people have autonomy over their own body, like, what they want to do. Okay, fine. In that context, yeah, do what you want. Like, at the end of the day, I'm not against peptides if you want to do that stuff. But there's other contexts which people try to look at it in regard to stuff like, for instance, is it banned by the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA? Okay, it's not. Then in a sense, is it natural? Well, it depends. If you're a natural bodybuilder and you want to compete in, say, for instance, the WNBF, the World Natural Bodybuilding Federation, you're going to be banned if you do that stuff. Natural bodybuilders cannot take that stuff. It really depends on the context in which you look at it.
Most guys that cut to this body fat naturally, their T levels fall below 400.
The first thing that he says is up for the debate. Cut to this naturally. Is he in fact natural if he uses Tirzepatide and or Ozempic? The answer is Turk Platinum, because it's authentic, from Uzbekistan. And so I actually have the plant, Ajuga turkistanica, that no one else could get.
Because as we discussed earlier, Gregor Gallagher is not a fan of bodybuilding. So whatever I just said about natural bodybuilding and competing as a natural and doing the best as a natural, you can throw that out of the bloody window, because this guy wants that, what do you say? Movie star body, bro. And all their movie stars are taking gear, bro. Let alone Tirzepatide.
It is natural. You can say that it's not really, it's just semantics. Who cares? Is it natural? Is it not natural? Whatever.
It's just semantics? No, it is not. We are in the fitness world. And in the fitness world, a lot of people who are natural like to compete in natural bodybuilding. And natural organizations have very clear stated rules for their athletes. This is the World Natural Bodybuilding Federation's stance on GLPs.
Well, technically, WADA's for Olympic athletes, but in natural bodybuilding, GLP is seeing this is not allowed. Guess what? I live in the real world. In the real world, no one gives a about natural bodybuilding, getting up on stage in front of judges. They want to look good for themselves. They want to feel confident. And GLPs, there's no performance enhancement benefit.
Yeah, so I would say that peptides are not natural. Does that mean they're as bad as steroids? No, they're not as bad as bloody steroids and injecting exogenous hormones like testosterone or tren or freaking taking halotestin orally or anything like that. No, it's very different to that. If you didn't know, peptides are amino acid strands which signal your body to do something instead of just, coming in and suppressing it and just doing its own thing like a steroid would. And it's interesting because on this channel, I talk a lot about, performance enhancing users and how, in a way it sounds like I'm very much against performance enhancing use because I talk about the side effects that people have of aging or acne or perhaps infertility or gynecomastia or high blood pressure and cardiovascular issues. But ultimately, I'm not against performance enhancing use. Seriously, I love bodybuilding and I don't think there's really an issue with performance enhancing use, steroid use, and of course peptide use if done correctly. If people do this stuff like an idiot, then yeah, I'm gonna probably mention something about it on a video.
Help! I'm stuck in this pose! Help! 450 lean coming soon!
But people using performance enhancers, I don't really have much of an issue with. And in fact, when it comes to peptides, I wouldn't be opposed to taking peptides myself. Seriously. Now, I did have a weight loss journey myself, if you didn't know. This is actually how I did look compared to what I look now, and I did it completely naturally. Now, if we were to go back a few years ago and I was offered to take something like a GLP-1 agonist, I probably wouldn't have done it, but going into the future, seeing the effects that it has and the health benefits and stuff like that, perhaps I may try it in the future just as an experiment. I don't necessarily need it. I don't think I'm fat in any way, right? But I might try it as an experiment perhaps, as well as some other things. Because I did that weight loss journey, I have like a tiny bit of like loose skin around my lower abdominal section, which gets on my nerves. Not enough to justify a surgery, but I've actually done some research into the skin elasticity benefits of something like GHKCU, which of course helps with looks maxing, but at the same time is supposed to help with tightening of loose skin. So maybe I'll look into that as well. I don't know. At the end of the day, peptides are obviously in their infancy as such for many of them. Some of them have been around for ages, whether it be insulin, whether it be growth hormone or the likes, but there are other ones that are, of course, much newer, especially with the development of all these new freaking GLP-1s. Retatrutide is not even approved for human consumption yet. There's conglytride and one that's, which is a quad-acting GLP-1, and one that's going to be freaking coming in that's, far like a quintuple, I don't know what you call it, agonist, right? It's quite an interesting topic nonetheless. But I'd like to, of course, hear your opinion on peptides because it is a very interesting topic. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. I do try my best to read as many comments as I can. Of course, if you want to support the channel, you can like and subscribe. It genuinely does mean so much. Go check out the socials if you want to. Until next time, more people are going to take bloody peptides. It is quite interesting.